This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for Sports Files is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
My guest today on Sports Files is the head coach of the University of Memphis football team, Justin Fuente. When it comes to football, you often associate the sport with cold weather. Who can forget those stories from NFL films highlighting the Green Bay Packers playing on the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field? Well, it's a rare exception in the South when we deal with really cold weather, and that means for most, if not all of the season, football players have to battle the oppressive heat and humidity, especially this time of the year. Earlier today, the University of Memphis football team took to the field for their first practice of preseason camp. Head coach Justin Fuente enters his second season as the Tigers head coach, and his biggest concern is not the heat nor the cold, but rather getting his team to step up, get better, and put themselves in position to compete in the very first season of the new American Athletic Conference. Today, Justin Fuente joins me to talk about his team's prospects, the challenges of a new and more competitive conference, and the hurdles that face him in his second year at the helm. We break the huddle with the top Tiger, Justin Fuente, next on Sports Files. Justin, great to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for your time. It's been an eventful summer for you, to say the least. The birth of your third child, all girls, and your first hole-in-one, and you did that with your dad in the foursome, so that's pretty amazing. Let's first of all talk about the little one. How's she been so far?
She's doing really well. On the 24th of July, we had Charlotte Sue Fuente, and she's doing really well. Mom's doing well. The two older siblings, their world has been turned upside down. So they're struggling a little bit, but mom and baby are doing well.
Excellent. Now tell me about the golf game. How often do you get to play? I know it's not a lot, but once in a while during the off season, you go to Colonial. Tell us the particulars.
Yeah, well, first of all, in my family, if you're a male, they want to know what your handicap is. They don't care if you're a head football coach. They don't care if you're a football player. They want to know if you can play golf. And so I'm the worst male golfer in my family by a long ways. I'm the only head football coach in my family, but the worst golfer. And I get to play about 2 months out of the year. And I was with my dad. He came down. We were playing Colonial, and we had a little 155-yard par 3. And I had Don DeWeese and Glenn Brown with me. And it was about, obviously it was it went in the hole, so it was a good shot. But I didn't hit a bunch of good shots that day. I hit one, which I guess is all it takes. But it was kind of cool. The only thing was I didn't see it go in. I hit the ground. I figured it hit by the pin, and it was pretty hard out there. I figured it probably ran off the back, but when we got up there, we found it was in the hole.
So how exciting! You don't seem to be the guy that's going to jump all over the place for hole one, but were you really excited?
No, I was excited, and Don and Glenn and my dad were excited too, which was kind of cool. So we took pictures and documented it thoroughly.
Nice.
But it was a fun, pretty cool day. It was really nice to have my dad there. I was a little kid when he hit his first hole-in-one.
Wow.
Playing with him, many moons ago. So it was kind of fun to have him.
And Don bought a round of donuts for everybody.
Yeah, Don, yeah. I think before we played the next hole, half the town knew already that I had a hole-in-one. But it was a fun day. It was a lot of fun.
You recently participated in the first ever American Athletic Conference Media Days in Rhode Island. What was that like?
Oh, it was an interesting experience. First of all, to go to that part of the country. Many of our kids, the kids that we took on the trip, had never been to Rhode Island. I'd never been there. I had this nice lobster bake deal outside, really kind of native to the area.
Exactly.
But as far as the media and everything, it was a good experience. Obviously we're building a program and moving into a new conference, so we're faced with all those challenges. And there's several teams that are in the league now that are really good football teams that have been good for several years now that garnered much of the attention, deservedly so. But it was good to go see the coaches. I've known some of the coaches for many years. some of the coaches for not very long. So it's always good to get around and compare notes and that kind of stuff.
The so-called prognosticators, the people that put out the magazines, most of them have you either 9th or 10th, and there's only 10 teams in the American, as you know. The media picked you last when you were up there at the American Athletic Conference Media Days. Do you care what they have to say in the preseason? Does it matter to you? Or do you use that with your players as motivation?
No, it's not something I'm going to beat our guys over the head with. You know, we have so many things to worry about that are in our own building that we don't really concern ourselves too much with everybody else. And I mean that sincerely. I really do. You know, I mean, I don't even know who they pick third or second.
Right.
You know, we have to control the things that we can control, which is ourselves. And in order to build our program, we've got to control it from within. And if we control it from within, if we, do the very fundamental things that teams require, then we'll be okay. So it's not something that I'll bring up or harp on the guys and go get revenge for. We need to continue to take steps forward.
All right, let's talk about you. What are the biggest question marks as you head into camp?
Well, the two biggest challenges, I think, are can we on defense get our mature group or our old group with many returners. Our roster on defense is littered with juniors and seniors. Can we get them to be a really, really good group? Can we get them to play outstanding team defense together? And our challenge offensively, where we're littered with many more freshmen, either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or sophomores, can we get those kids to play at a high level early in their career? I think those are the two just general big challenges for us.
How much more comfortable are you having the 1 year as a head coach under your belt?
Well, I know the second year is a little bit easier from the aspect of, when you sit down and have your first summer camp, your first year, you have to sit down and walk through every second of the camp, from where everybody is stationed to what everybody's going to do to what we're going to say and how we're going to move from field to field. I mean, just, you have to meticulously walk through. Well, the second year, everybody's got an understanding of kind of what's expected of them. So those things move a little bit smoother. So, it's more comfortable, a little bit easier from that aspect, just an organizational aspect. And then from a team aspect, I think our team has taken large strides in the last year, which doesn't mean that we've arrived, but means that you can start to turn your focus a little bit onto maybe some more advanced topics or some more advanced thoughts concerning the team.
In other words, that first year, it's getting used to the surroundings. You're getting used to your staff. They're getting used to you. The players are getting used to you. You're getting used to the players. It's going back and forth. And you're trying to install this philosophy you have. Now it's there. You've planted it, and you're watching the seeds grow. And I would have to imagine that you feel a lot more comfortable with your team, but you also are starting a new chapter with a new conference. Does that offset it?
Well, and each team's different. I mean, there is some carryover. We didn't have a tremendous amount of seniors, but we did have seniors last year that are no longer with the team. We have a large number of an influx of young players into the program. So each team's different, but you feel like you've at least got some sort of foundation that you can build on instead of building the very foundation the entire year. And I think there's a trust level too. There's much, at least with this program, when we came in, there's a lot more, I don't know what the clinical terms, but there's a lot more social trust that, wasn't there between coach and player when we first started. And I think we've laid that foundation. They understand that we have their best interest at heart, that we're going to do everything we can within the rules to make sure that they're ready to play and win. And I'm not sure that trust was, I know it wasn't there when we walked in the door.
Right.
So, at least
they
get
built
that.
It.
Yeah, at least get that down a little bit with a large portion of the team. There's still guys that, come along slower than others.
You said every team is different, and it is. But can you take the momentum that you built at the end of that season, playing the way you did, winning those last 3 games, can you take that into the start of camp or even into the season, knowing that it's different players, knowing that it's even a different conference?
Well, I think part of it is that those guys have at least tasted some measure of success. They had not tasted any success.
Right.
And to be rewarded for their hard work, I think anything at least reinforces, kind of the notion of come to work every single day, ready to work, and good things will happen. I don't know if the guys will ride the momentum on September 7th versus Duke at home with us winning the last 3 games last year. I don't know if there's that much carry, but there is a little reinforcement, I think, of a job well done, and a little bit of a pat on the back to say, you can do this. This is not some far off ideal that has never been accomplished before.
Right.
This can happen if you do these things. Now, these things are not easy. It's not easy to stay focused, not easy to put the team first. It's not easy to prepare to win every single week. But if you do those things, you can give yourself an opportunity for success.
When you took over, because I've seen comments from you before, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, how much of in disarray was this program?
Well, yeah, I am pretty honest. I don't know.
It was pretty bad.
We weren't in good shape. I don't think it's a secret.
No, not at all.
I mean, I think one of the interesting things is the feeling I got from our kids this spring was I got the feeling that they were sitting there with each other going, but why does Coach get upset? We're so much better than we were. Because we had, the program had gone down so far.
Right.
And we had just a glimmer of hope there the last 3 games, and with what they're doing facilities-wise, with Tom Bowen as our new athletic director, with Brad Martin as our president, all the things going in the right direction. I could just vision them in their dorm room sitting back going, I don't know why Coach gets so mad because things are so much better.
When you had so far to go.
Yeah, that's right. But we had to change their perception of what is good and where are we going with this thing. And that was kind of our rallying cry in the spring was, you've got to change your perception of what we can accomplish.
What did you think of the video that's gone viral with Jacob Karam and the young lady who's fighting cancer, Bree?
Well, I think that I have a couple thoughts on it. One, Jacob is wise beyond his years. He is a very mature, intelligent young man that obviously graduated from Texas Tech in 2.5 years. He's come here to play his last couple of years. And he does a lot of things that nobody knows about, and he does them for the right reasons. He is not a spotlight seeker.
Right.
He does those things because he believes in helping other people. So I was glad, kind of selfishly, that other people get to recognize Jacob for the work that he's done. And I know he didn't do it like that on purpose, but it's nice for him to get a pat on the back because he is genuinely a very fine young man and somebody we should all be proud of.
The quarterback battle, I know through spring it was open. I assume it's still wide open going into camp. Correct me if I'm wrong. Karam and Lynch and Matthews, you have options. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still open. I was impressed at times I was very impressed with all 3 of them in the spring. I think they've all gotten better. Jacob continuing to learn how to play. He was a junior last year, but he was really just a freshman on the field.
Right.
Paxton continuing to develop, a very talented young man, a guy that's really long and can run and throws the ball pretty well. And then Eric, a guy that we brought in as camp went along last year and, was trying to find his way, all those sorts of things, has kind of found a little bit of comfort there and played pretty well in the spring. Eric throws the ball much better than anybody gives him credit for. He really does throw the ball pretty well. So I'm excited to continue that battle.
Do you expect to name a starter somewhere in the middle of camp, or do you think you'll take it all the way until the end?
Well, we'll just play it. We'll play it by ear. We've had those discussions. It's not because we haven't talked about it as a staff. I really believe I'm going to steer clear of circling a date and saying
Right.
we got to have something by then. And we'll kind of see how it goes. I feel like we got I'll say this, I feel like we got a great evaluation this spring. We did live drills. We had the quarterbacks live for a couple drills during the spring. We charted every single thing that all 3 of them did. I feel like we have a really good evaluation coming out of the spring.
Your second recruiting class is coming in. Do you feel, because you've always talked about the numbers, and you're still probably not there where you want to be, but there's a little bit more depth.
Will there be any of these freshmen that you will be throwing right out to the fire?
Yes. And I think just in general terms, there'll be much fewer of them defensively. Now, there may be one or two, but defensively, we're in a much healthier situation. 3/4 or 7/8 of our defensive unit are all juniors and seniors. We will, in the next year or two, will have to recruit an influx of young players to replace them. But right now, we're a mature defense from just an age standpoint. Offensively, it's completely opposite. So I would anticipate between 5 and 7, maybe as many as 6 and 8 freshmen, redshirt freshmen, seeing significant playing time on the offensive side of the ball. We've got great competition there for the first time, which is really exciting me as somebody that's worked primarily on the offensive side of the ball. So we've got competition at running back, competition at wide receiver, competition at quarterback. Our offensive line is going to continue to develop. It's just hard to quick fix that situation. We're going to continue to bring 3 or 4 guys in a year and feed them and lift them and develop that thing, and I think we'll be in a much better shape in years to come.
Without getting too complicated or giving away your trade secrets, I think I read where you're going to do a little bit, a few changes, a little bit different things with the offense. Maybe a little conservative last year while everybody was getting used to it, and you didn't really have exactly everybody you wanted for your offense. You're going to do some things differently. What can you tell us?
Well, I think, I have a vision for our team and what we're going to look like, and we just, in my opinion, I guess some people would say professional opinion. Some people probably argue with that. But
I hope it's a professional opinion.
In my opinion, last year we did what gave us the best chance to win, which was to slow the ball game down, rely heavily on the defense, see if we could run the ball, make some big plays in play action. And I think that's what won us the 4 games.
Right.
It was because that's kind of the philosophy we took. In the long range, I'd like to continue to change things up, though. That's not the long-term solution. I don't think for us. So, I think you'll continue over the next couple years to see us grow towards where we'd like to be. I think it would be foolish and short-sighted for me to just try and force a square peg into a round hole offensively. So I think you'll continue over the years to see us move progressively to an offense that can change the tempo, that can get the ball to the perimeter a little bit more, that at times can really put their foot on the gas and go quick. But we're not going to wholesale that at the detriment of our defense either. So it's a delicate balance. But over the next couple of years, hopefully we will look a little bit more like what I had envisioned.
You open up on September 7th against Duke at home, a challenge, playing them last year in Durham, losing that game. And David Cutcliffe's done a real nice job. But the fact that you don't play the opening weekend, do you hate that, or do you like the extra time?
Well, I tell you, for us, it's kind of an interesting deal the way the school calendar falls. That's my biggest deal is I actually like this setup because like last year when we started camp, our kids were still in summer school. For an entire week, we were doing walkthroughs and practice and lifting and going to school and study hall.
Right.
Which, I mean, I know we go to school during the fall, I understand that, but during camp, that's kind of the sacred time of, there's 3 weeks in there or 2.5 weeks in there where it's just ball. And we had a full week. We had guys taking finals on scrimmage days, which was, not impossible, and our kids did well and handled it, but it's just a little bit hard on the schedule. This year, because we don't play until the second week, our start date is moved back, so we only have 2 days of summer school and camp as opposed to 5 the day before. So I like that part for our preparation and getting ready for the first game.
All right, quick answer for me. Beside the quarterback battle that everybody's always interested in, what's the one position where we should keep our eyes on for a great battle for a starting job?
Well, I think our nose guard position has a chance to be a really interesting thing to see how. You've got Terry Redden,
right,
who I think is an outstanding football player. You've got Johnny Farms, and then we've got another guy or two that we're adding to the mix that I think has a chance to really get in there and compete.
Nice to have depth and competition.
Well,
right?
at defensive line too, that's usually where you're trying to find guys. But we have a chance to be deep there and mature and be have some good players.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. Good to see you again, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
We'll take a quick break. When we come back, it's our overtime segment.
While football at the University of Memphis is just getting underway, summer basketball in the Bluff City Classic came to a close last night. For years, the event, once known as the Jerry Dover Classic, has entertained hoop fans by providing an entertaining product absolutely free of charge. But there was a time when games were not played, and the fear was that they may never return. In fact, the Summer League went away in 2002 and stayed dormant until 2011. That's when Stanley Blue and hoop legend Penny Hardaway resurrected the league. This season saw many members of the Tigers participate, including newcomers like Michael Dixon and Kieran Iverson, many former Tigers like Adonis Thomas, Will Coleman, and Andre Allen, and several NBA players, including another former Tiger, Will Barton, and Thaddeus Young. The Bluff City Classic is a showcase for these young, talented players, and the fireworks were evident early and often. And here's a little taste of this Memphis summer staple.
The Bluff City Classic actually started with Mr. Jerry Dover about close to 30 years ago. It was Mr. Dover's hopes and dreams to allow young kids who didn't have the opportunity to afford a ticket at the University of Memphis games to be able to see their favorite University of Memphis and college players up close and in person during the summertime. So Mr. Dover started the Bluff City Classic. Mr. Dover unfortunately passed away, and in 2010, Penny and I got together and we talked about how important the Bluff City Classic was for us when we were coming up. So we decided to resurrect it in memory of Mr. Jerry Dover. In 2010, we got together and brought the Classic back to Southwest Tennessee Community College. The Bluff City Classic is really similar to the Rugby League up in New York. It gives kids, especially a lot of kids who are unknown, an opportunity to come out and compete and to show their skills against top-level NBA players and top-level college players from all across the country. For example, tonight you're gonna get an opportunity to see Shaq Goodwin, University of Memphis, Damian Wilson at the University of Memphis. Lester Hudson is actually playing. He played very well out in the NBA Summer League out in Vegas, so he's actually playing as well. So that's the first game. The second game, you're going to get an opportunity to see Mr. Chris Crawford from the University of Memphis, Mr. David Pelham from the University of Memphis, Will Barton from the University of Memphis. Will Barton came back to play. He played very well out in the NBA Summer League as well. And he came home, and the first thing he did was call me up to see if he could participate in the Bluff City Classic. He loves things like that. What it means to the players, for one, it's a tradition. It's a tradition that's deeply rooted in Memphis. I mean, you get bragging rights, but it really and truly gives the players, if they take it serious, it gives them an opportunity to focus in and concentrate and to build their game and develop their game. You got 3 referees, so you're not just playing pickup basketball. You got somebody else calling your fouls for you. You're in a professional setting where you got the referees, you got scorekeepers, you got time clocks, and the whole 9. So if you take it serious, it really and truly helps you develop your game, and it allows you also to gauge where you are in the development of your game. If you're competing, if you're playing against top-level NBA players, top-level college players, that's going to tell you really and truly if you need to work more on your game or if your game is really where you want it to be. So it allows you, it's sort of like a ruler or a gauge to determine where your game is in its development.
This tournament is simply to just build chemistry with my teammates and learn how to play against aggressive crowds. Over the offseason, I've trimmed out my body fat I got my body in shape, so I'm trying to stay down to about 240, 250 instead of going back up to 270.
Why are you coming out to watch?
Just kind of see the show, seeing the good players play ball. Yeah, I wish I could get out there and play with the men. It's more exciting than the females game.
And that will do it for this week's show. We are off next week for our pledge drive, but we'll return on the 22nd of August. And until then, why not check out some of our previous shows? You can do so by going to our website at WKNO.org and clicking on KNO Tonight. Take care, and we'll see you next time.